Hey, everybody, welcome to the Daily Bullet, your interview about people who are making a difference in gun rights. Joining me today, I am so pleased to bring to the airways Michelle Salzman. She is the newly elected representative for the Florida House. She comes from the 1st District up in the Pensacola area, and that is, I would say Pensacola is I would call it a military town. Would you agree with that?
Yes, absolutely. We're definitely a big military community. We have the Navy base, we have Eglin Air Force Base, we have Corey Station, and then, of course, just a little bit up the road is Fort Rucker, and then a little bit to the right of us is other military installations. So we're a very big military community. A lot of military comes and retires here. So
very cool. So let me start off with first term representative, and what brought you to want to run? I mean, being a House member, even on the state level, is a nightmare job, if you were to ask me. And you went and sought it out. Why did you do that?
Well, honestly, we had a representative there that was extremely ineffective, and the bills that were being presented weren't even being heard in the committees, much less on the floor. And I just felt like we were having a big gap in representation for the district. We have a very large geographical makeup in my district alone, and so I campaigned on safety and infrastructure and education, and I just feel like we need to get back to the basics as government. And a lot of times we get caught up in all of the feelings of sea turtles or whatever it is that's the buzzword for the year, and we lose track of the fact that government is supposed to be, very basic, So I just felt like we were lacking that representation, and I've been a community volunteer and advocate here for almost 20 years, serving on many boards and just full time doing that. So it's actually not much of a difference as far as the time I'm giving away. It's really just a change in the authority, I guess you could say. I say influence and other people say authority, but either way, I'm honored to be here. I'm honored that I won. It was an unprecedented win, but it was certainly a great one, and looking forward to doing some good stuff.
Very cool. So let's focus a little bit on Tallahassee. And if I could, I want to because we are about gun rights, I'd like to focus specifically on Second Amendment issues that are current in Tallahassee and maybe what's coming up. First of all, when do you, as we record this, and it'll be released on the 16th of December, the legislature hasn't started yet. When do you actually start things up there?
Session starts in January. The Legis, which is the program that we submit bills to, opened up for representatives to submit bills to last week.
Okay.
But the session doesn't start until January. So right now, as a new representative, my job has really just been connecting and building relationships across the state so that I can gain that influence that I call it, and focus on learning how the process works and who's important, who's not important. Because, at the end of the day, I ran because I felt like the guy that was here was ineffective, and I would certainly hate to be ineffective too.
Sure. So I've been reporting a lot, and I know, for example, Illinois and Texas, and here in my home state, South Dakota, there are already laws that are being proposed that are getting put into line to be considered in legislatures. Is there anything that is coming up in January that you've seen that you're already either encouraged or alarmed about?
Well, somebody, which apparently it's filed every year, a Democrat filed a bill to require background checks for purchasing ammunition. Can't even say that with a straight face. Anyway, that's not going to make any headway. Apparently they do it every year. It's kind of like the representative before me. They just file it so they can say that they're opposed to it. But that's not going to make it anywhere. We are almost very close to a supermajority in the Republican side. So we're pretty confident that's not going to make any grounds. There have been talks about doing some great bills for improving our gun rights here in Florida. We had that Margie Stoneman Douglas bill that passed a few years ago, and it took away a lot of the rights, and it was actually really frustrating. That's what happens when lawmakers write laws and base it off of emotion instead of the Constitution. So we are hopeful that we make some progress on that. I'm not going to be the lead on any Second Amendment bills, but that's only because if I led a Second Amendment bill, it's not going to make it anywhere. I'm brand new, so it wouldn't do any good for me to try to lead the charge in something so important as that. But I hear that there's some great stuff coming down the pipe, and I am going to be very excited to advocate for it and obviously put my name on it as a co-sponsor. But nothing real as of yet. Just because I am connected with leadership, I do hear that there's some good stuff coming.
Well, very cool. And this one I'm totally ignorant on, so forgive me. You start up in January. A lot of state legislatures, like my own home state of South Dakota, it'll start in January. It wraps up late March, early April. And then there are others like Ohio. Ohio goes for 2 solid years. They start on January 1st. They're going to wrap up on December 31st, 2 years later. What does Florida's legislature look like? How often are you guys in session?
Well, my first question after you say that is, do they have a balanced budget? Anyway, that's our number one constitutional priority, is balancing the budget as a legislative body. And so our budget is balanced. We don't have any issues with our expenditures, but it ends in April.
Okay.
So maybe it might be May, but it's only like 4 weeks long, and it starts in March. So everything is done within a few months. We do a week at a time. January we'll do a week. February is like 2 weeks. March is session, and then April we should be wrapping up.
All right. Very cool.
Yeah. So we'll know in the next 4 weeks what's real. Like what's really going to be good, what's really going to be bad. And if you're connected and engaged in the leadership's conversations, you'll know what's supported and what's not supported. So you'll have an idea of what really is important for you to go for or against, But like I said, I hear that we have some good stuff coming that's going to help us out a lot. The law was changed a few years ago. You have to be 21 years old to buy a weapon. And now we're hoping that we can push that back to 18. Mm-hmm. I was an armorer in the Army, and I absolutely love my guns. I love it all. And when I was campaigning, people would say, well, how pro Second Amendment are you? And I'm like, well, what kind of question is that? I didn't understand that there was different, either you are or you aren't. But apparently the Constitution isn't clear. So I'd like to say that if I could just put a Bradley in my front yard and mount a 50 cal on it, that's how pro Second Amendment I am. And I don't want to have to go get a permit for that.
There you go. There you go. How do I put this? I've said it often. My personal belief is you ought to be able to go to the store and buy anything from a 1022 to an F-22 Raptor. As long as you can pay for it, you ought to be able to take it home. No background check.
If you're a criminal, you don't have to do a background check.
Right.
You just go buy it from somewhere. I mean, what are we doing? And the most peculiar thing to me, which just blows my mind that anybody actually thinks that this is logical thinking. You want to keep me from getting my guns, so you want me to have to go through all these checks. I limit my magazine capacity, limit the type of barrel I use, all that stuff. And then you want to defund the police. So you don't want the police department to have money to protect you, and you don't want the ability to buy your own protection. So who in God's name is going to protect you from a criminal? It's just, honestly, I don't even know how people can say that in one paragraph and feel like they have any ability to think logically. It blows my mind. I'm completely mind blown. And some of these states, the things that they're doing, I had no idea that people were that crazy. I mean that. I had no idea. We live in Florida in District 1. you ain't going to get away with that stuff. I can promise you. And you knock on just about any door in my neighborhood, and somebody will show. I mean, we all carry. We all have our weapons. Matter of fact, when I picked my office, funny story. The guy that I replaced had an office in a place you weren't allowed to carry because they were on a campus, and you can't carry on campus, which is wrong, but that's one of our laws. And I said, I'm sorry. They called me. They said, would you like to, an office there? I said, I can't. They said, what do you mean you can't? I said, I can't be there. I can't conceal carry. And they're like, but why do you need to? I'm like, dude, what do you mean? Why do I need to? I appreciate the offer. Thank you for offering free office space. But if I am pro Second Amendment, why would I use my office space with you? I'm going to go pay, whatever a month because I want to practice my constitutional rights. So it's funny. The person before me didn't even, I don't know, it blows my mind, just the whole thing of it. But in our community, most of us carry, and we don't think it's odd. Matter of fact, I would love to see constitutional carry, either open or concealed. And I'm hoping that we're going to move towards that slowly, to be honest with you. They took away our rights in segments, they chomped at the bit slowly. And so hopefully we can do the same thing to get them back. And not that obviously when I look at other states, we have great gun rights, but we don't, because this shouldn't be a conversation, right? Like it's the Constitution. It's very plain. But anyway, I think we're in a good spot in Florida compared to other states, but we have a long way to go to get where I think we should be. And I am certainly excited to be a part of the conversation and to be an advocate for the community and the Second Amendment community, and do whatever I can to help, to be honest with you. It's because some of these states aren't looking so good.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that leads me into two directions. First of all, from what I know of Florida law and some good friends I have down with the Florida Carry Group, open carry is very limited in Florida. You can only do it if you're hunting, fishing, camping, something like that. Otherwise, you must conceal and you must have a license. I'm guessing.
Isn't that bizarre?
Yeah.
Isn't that weird? Like you want me to hide my gun? What? I don't know. It blows my mind. I would rather. I love it when I walk into a place and I see the sidearms. I saw it on your hip. I love that. I love knowing I'm safe. I don't feel unsafe if I see 5 folks walk in with a gun showing. I feel unsafe if I see a guy hiding a gun in his jacket.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, but yes, go ahead. You were. I love Florida Carry, by the way. Incredible folks. Those guys advocate for real issues. They make a huge difference. And I tell people all the time, if you're not a member, you need to be a member of Florida Carry.
Very cool. The other thing, we've got an incoming administration now. For all intents and purposes, it's a done deal that the next presidential administration is going to be decidedly anti-gun. The last time there's been a movement of late of certain counties and now a few states going for the Second Amendment sanctuary, where we're not going to fund any federal regulations that restrict firearms rights. Is that something you would be willing to look into for Florida?
Yeah, I think so. But Florida is such a red state. I was shocked at the bill that passed a few years ago. And I'm an optimist. It could just be that I feel like we're in the right direction, but I certainly am going to fight. That will be something that there's no wiggle room there. It's a constitutional right. Done. Mm-hmm. Anything that we do beyond that is against the Constitution. So I think that we are. I think we're moving in the right direction. I would certainly be willing to support something like that. I'll support anything that we can do to help with those rights. Like I said, if I had it my way, we'd be constitutional carry, done, open or concealed. So, and I am a member of Florida Carry. I love what they stand for. I love what they do. And anytime I have real questions about what's going on, they're great people to really explain to me. the ins and outs of things that sometimes I don't understand. But I certainly, absolutely, I guess would have been the answer. I've talked all the way around that to say that, but I'm just optimistic that we won't need to do that. I mean, I feel like Florida's going to be like, y'all are crazy. I mean, look at the presidential voting. We counted our votes just fine.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm looking around at the nation going, what's wrong with you guys? Can't you figure this out? I bet you're the same ones that had all that looting. Okay, I didn't say that. I'm sorry.
And I've already went past the time I told you I'd keep you, but one thing I want to commend Florida on is, if you look back to the 2000 election, the Bush-Gore election, everybody's attention got intensely focused on Florida and the hanging chads and all that. But following that election, you folks got it right. You straightened it up, and voting down there, I don't think has been questioned at all in the past 10 years.
We, even as a first-time politician in my whole life, and winning the primary, which meant that I certainly was going to win the general, it's a given in my district. I have a really red district, so once I beat the incumbent, I was automatically assumed to be the representative. So even as a freshman, I was connected in that, and they had me traveling all over the state, knocking doors for other Republicans, and so I just think that not just our state in general, but our Republican Party here in the state of Florida was extremely organized in their efforts to make sure that everything was the way it should be, to include just keeping an eye and an ear out for voter fraud or potential voter fraud or potential anything, and we just had a very proactive governor, and we saw, like you said, you see what could happen, and you don't want to be the one that's making the big mess of things. So we worked, and including myself, I mean, we traveled all over the state, knocking on doors, talking to voters, helping other areas with whatever they needed to do to make sure that we were lined up. And there was no question that we were absolutely a Republican state, and we were going to win our seats, as well as, the president winning his seat. So, matter of fact, I got to open for the president when he came to Pensacola. So it's just, we just really worked really hard. That wasn't, and I think that that's what happened in the other states. They just said, you just let it go. No, you should be planning, like y'all should be having meetings. You should be discussing this. You should be implementing measures. And they just, maybe they weren't doing that. I assume they weren't, because we worked hard at what we got. We didn't get it right because of chance.
Right.
Florida we really tried to make sure we did it right. So I think that's the difference in what you've seen in other areas, is they just didn't really put forth that foot and say, we're going to make sure we set this example to do it right. So, because they talked about voter fraud for, what was it, a year now, they've been talking about mailing and this, and this could potentially go wrong. And if you're talking about all those things possibly being wrong, don't you think you should be trying to figure out how to make sure it doesn't? So
absolutely,
that's not, like I said, that's on them. Some of these states are, I'm actually grateful for some of the things that's happened recently, because I would have never known where not to live. And now I know where not to live. I'm safe in Florida, right? Would you say safe in Texas? There's a couple of states that I feel like I'd be safe in, and I would have never known that I didn't feel safe in some of those until some of the stuff that's happened recently. So,
all right. Well, Representative Salzman, we are running plumb out of time. I want to thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Reach out for anything I can do.
All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and set this one aside there. I would encourage you, please subscribe, and when you do, hit that notification bell so you know when we release another video, and we will be doing that tomorrow. Thanks for watching.